What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to Nerd Media, and I know this intro seems a little bit kind of down and upsetting because I just watched The Last of Us Season 2, Episode 5, and guys, I loved the episode, but it was so emotional. Like, we have to talk about it because it seriously may be my favorite episode of the entire show, at least in the top two, at the very least. And it's just the best episode of the season by far. Seriously, I knew I wasn't going to be ready for this episode, and the effect that it has had on me is just very much what I kind of would have expected from something like this. So in this video, I'm going to be diving into my review for this episode, talking about all the things that I loved and why I really think that this episode really brought all the emotions. Like, it brought everything. I mean, we've had a bunch of episodes that have brought everything to it, and this episode really kind of did that, and in a very different and special way that I just want to talk about in this video. So, in this video, we're going to be discussing The Last of Us Season 2, Episode 6, and I just love this show. But if you guys are new to the channel, I'm Nerd Media. I talk about movies, TV shows, and comic books all the time on the channel. But The Last of Us isn't the only thing we're talking about today, because we also are going to be talking about Superman coming up in a few months. We got Mission Impossible this week, along with Lilo and Stitch. We're also going to be talking a lot more about Thunderbolts, Fantastic Four, and just Avengers Doomsday, all that kind of stuff that you would expect from a channel. So we're going to be diving into all of that in this channel, but we're talking about The Last of Us in this video. So don't forget to like and subscribe, comment down below, sit back, relax, enjoy the video, and let's dive right into the review. First things first, yeah, you guys already know I love this episode. I have been absolutely loving this season. It is my favorite show of the year so far, which is really kind of just very strange to say because this is the same year and the same month that we have had Andor. But, I do think that season 2 of that show is great, but I do think that it wasn't as good as season 1. But we're talking about The Last of Us. The Last of Us season 2, episode 6 was absolutely fabulous. I loved seeing the little time jumps every year, kind of seeing and getting more context surrounding Joel and Ellie, and kind of what really brought them to this kind of breaking point that we see them in the first episode, and then we get more context to that later on. I really enjoyed that, and it really brought some very heartwarming and just beautiful and sweet moments with those two that just genuinely, literally warmed my heart. Like, I literally was just smiling the whole time during it because it was just some of the best moments of the show were in there. Like, seriously, that whole museum thing, a dinosaur, all of it was just so beautiful and so well done. I just loved it, and I really enjoyed the warmness that it brought to my heart in those moments. But it also really made my heart heavy because there was so many emotional stuff in this episode, and it's probably the most emotional for me that the show has been up until this point. Like, I love that we had the opening of the episode be about Joel and Tommy as little kids, and we get to see the cameo of, I don't know the actor's name, but I know he plays the swordsman in Hawkeye and Daredevil. It's unfortunate that it's the only thing I know him from. I really don't like that that's the only thing I know him from, but I love that actor, and it was so awesome to see him there. And I really enjoyed that opening and the discussion that his dad and Joel have, and how that does come full circle in a very emotional way at the end of the episode. I really love when shows do full circle moments like that, and just having that moment really kind of hit harder for me. And yeah, obviously Pedro Pascal was back in this episode, and he was a main key player in this episode as we get to see like 5 or 6 flashbacks, I think, of Ellie and Joel. Just absolutely just very beautifully structured episode. I really enjoyed how they handled the flashbacks, because going into the episode, we all knew it was going to be a flashback centric episode with Joel and Ellie, and that was something I was personally very excited for. And obviously I wasn't disappointed. It was a great episode, and I just was really happy to see Pedro Pascal's name pop up in the credits, and to have Joel on the side again with Ellie in the end of the credits during when they're about to show the logo. I loved that, and it made me happy to see him back for one final time before we probably won't see him again in the rest of the show, even next season. And like I said earlier, I'm gonna dive into it a little bit more right now. I loved seeing the evolution of Joel and Ellie's relationship, because we literally pick off 2 months after season 1 ended, and then we go and evolve each year to kind of see how their relationship changes, how Ellie and Joel are changing and evolving as people. And I really really love that. Like, we get to see Joel with his season 1 haircut and just see some really fun stuff and see how he's trying to make a cake for Ellie and how his knowledge on the cake and like getting the chocolate cake a year later after he gets the vanilla one and seeing like just learning these little things for Ellie, I think is really what adds that emotional depth and core to Joel's character, because he really cares about Ellie, and that gets really really shown in this episode. And I really just love how that is shown in these small little details, because if you notice them, then everything else that he does for her and everything that he, almost all the actions he takes, just hit a little bit more harder. And it's a proven fact, because that's what happened with me. You know, seeing Ellie and Joel go to the museum, the dinosaur, and seeing that like whole space sequence was a lot of fun. And seeing them both like go on their first patrol, I thought all of that was just really awesome and fun. And I just really loved all the small moments that we got with them, because it really felt like early season Joel and Ellie, and it just really just made me feel happy again watching this show. Like, I love the show, but this season especially has had very few happy moments. And this whole episode being like kind of half happy, half not, I really dug. I mean, there are some moments that we're gonna dive into now that were pretty emotional. Like, we're gonna be talking about Eugene right now, because that whole scene and that whole flashback really felt like its own separate episode inside of a really heartwarming, emotional episode for Ellie and Joel. I mean that in the best way possible, because we all knew we were going to get the Eugene flashback at some point, because we see the discussion that they have in the therapy room at the beginning, knowing that Joel killed him somehow. We kind of figured we would get a flashback like that at some point, and just getting context to it, because it's very one-sided when we first hear about it, because we assume that Joel just kills him because he gets infected and he doesn't have any time. But then when we see in this episode that he does have time, and that he very clearly could have made it back to Boston so that he could say goodbye, I thought, then what Joel does, showing him the beautiful sky and telling him that if you really love somebody, you can always see them. I thought all of that gave me chills, and it was so sad and so powerful and kind of beautiful, and it was just all these really like strange emotions, making it this really just gut-wrenching scene in many ways, because then we get the scene that follows and we get to see Ellie tell everybody that what Joel told everybody was not true. Like, what Joel told Gail, not true. And I just really enjoy how we got to see that, because I would have done the same thing Ellie did. I would have told the truth. I mean, like, you can't just let that go away. You can't just let that slide. So I really enjoyed how that was played out, and then it obviously adds full circle context to the beginning therapy scene with Gail and Joel. And obviously now that we've seen that, it really hits harder when those two interact, and when we see Gail talk about Joel, or the vice versa. I really just loved how that scene in the episode, which I think was only like 12 minutes, maybe even less, it seriously felt like it was its own episode inside of this. And I really think that is very awesome, especially when you have an episode that has like 6-10 minute flashback sequences, and then this is one of them. It's really hard to do that, and I really think that definitely adds to the episode and how well structured I thought it was. And one of my favorite scenes of this show now, and definitely one of my favorite scenes of this episode, is the Future Days guitar scene. I've seen a lot of people reacting to this, and everybody's getting emotional and everything. I was just smiling the whole time, because it was just so beautiful, and it was such a great scene. And it's a great scene when after the episode I go and look up the song to listen to it. I know I've never listened to it before. It may be shocking to some people, but I've listened to it maybe 10, 12 times in the past 24 hours. So I am definitely obsessed with the song now. And I think, obviously that scene being the main thing I think of when I listen to it. I love when movies and shows make me go listen to songs because of how good they are. And Pedro Pascal, voluntarily singing for the audience, I love that. And I just really just thought that scene was very heartwarming, because it's one of the only scenes we see in this episode where Ellie and Joel are mainly like 100% on good terms. But I mean, we have to talk about it. We got to talk about the porch scene. That was a scene that just broke me emotionally. It was So great. This was obviously something everybody was theorizing about. I had heard about the porch scene. I didn't know like what was said in it or really what the context of it really was. I just heard there was a scene of them at the porch and that it seemed like they did a fake out in episode 1. So I was definitely curious to see what this scene was going to be, and I was assuming it was going to be pretty emotional with how I've seen people talking about it, and they were right. I mean, this scene made me cry. It was, I don't think a single person watching The Last of Us last night really made it out of the episode without shedding at least one tear. I had a few, and it was all during this scene, 100%. I had all these moments that really warmed my heart a lot and just made me smile, but this one made me smile and cry at the same time. It was just, you know, the acting, the writing, the way that the scene went, and just the discussion that is had, and just the explanation of Joel why he did what he did, and just how Ellie is really thinking that he's just selfish, and how she thinks that he took her purpose away from her. I think that all of that was so beautifully done and just so well executed. And Pedro Pascal is the perfect fit for this character, I think. I mean, he really nailed this scene. This may be one of his best scenes in the show, because when he delivers the line, because I love you, I thought that was the moment that really made me cry. He's really good at hitting those emotional marks. I mean, you can't really deny him for that. He's a perfect casting for this role, and this scene really proves that. I loved this scene. This episode is genuinely probably my favorite of the season so far, and it's in my top 2, definitely in debate. Highly considering it to be my favorite episode of the series, but I think the only one standing in its way is probably It's Been a Long Time, season 1, episode 3. You guys know that episode. That's a very emotional episode as well. And it's also very sad that the top 2 episodes that I think are the best ones are also the most emotional ones. But, you know, that's what this show is good at. So I want to hear it from you guys. Let me know in the comments down below what you thought of The Last of Us Season 2, Episode 6. I know I am not ready for the show to end next week. I have just had such a blast watching this show. I seriously cannot wait for them to come back and do a season 3. Like, I can't wait for them to start filming so we can get this season as soon as possible, because I love this show. Season 1's phenomenal. Season 2 is spectacular, maybe even a little bit better than Season 1. You guys know I've been glazing this show, so I'm definitely excited for next week. And you guys definitely should be on the lookout for my review for that next Monday when it drops. And then I'm also going to be ranking my favorite episodes of the show probably that following Tuesday or that Monday. So with all that being said, don't forget to like and subscribe. Comment down below what you thought of The Last of Us Season 2, Episode 6. And if you stuck around the video this long and you enjoyed the video, thank you so much. Clearly you said something you liked, or you were just, clearly I said something you liked, or you were just entertained. So just subscribe, like the video, turn on notifications, share this with your friends. And with all that being said, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.